The blackout wasn't an accident. It was a calling card. Scarlett was by the window, not for the beauty of the view, but for the clarity it provided. One moment, the twinkling lights of the metropolis glittered like a sea of gems. The next, it was gone. The hum of her condominium went silent, and black stretched as far as the vantage point allowed the eye to see. It had happened before. The power grid had been systematically disabled across the expansive city, likely spilling into the neighboring states just across the river. Only one person in her world possessed the audacity, the resources, and the motive to execute such an action. Quinn. The whiskey in Scarlett's hand had warmed, and the lingering taste on her tongue turned sour. She didn't move from her position at the window, not even turning. She simply listened to the dead air of a very expensive, very exposed condominium apartment. The air was thick, almost stifling, but Scarlett kept her breathing level. Scarlett had been waiting for months, not for an arrest, but for the next confrontation. The chase had started as a hunt, but had quickly devolved into a slow, agonizing dance choreographed by Quinn. The situation had long since slipped from Scarlett's control. She heard a click, the sound of her emergency light coming to life in the room. It was independent of the building's power and generator, and the light was just bright enough to conserve battery life. So she finally turned. "You are quick," Scarlett finally stated, her voice sounding loud in the hushed darkness. She spoke in the general direction of, not the door to her bedroom, but the mantle of the modest fireplace in the middle. "And exceedingly predictable. A citywide blackout just for a house call, Quinn? You must truly miss me." Scarlett's guess had been correct, because the next moment, she heard a soft, amused exhale come from that direction. Quinn, the high-profile phantom who concurrently crippled despotistic world leaders and the professionalism of Detective Scarlett, shifted into the orange glow of the emergency light. "Predictability is a kindness, darling." Quinn's voice was husky, the deep timbre resonating in the silent room. "Besides, I had to ensure federal response teams were diverted to other matters while I made my approach. You know I loathe being rushed. And I certainly wouldn't risk having the lights come back on while I'm in the middle of a rather personal conversation with you." "A conversation requires two voices, Quinn," Scarlett challenged. "And one listener," Quinn responded. She stepped close to Scarlett, so close, Scarlett could smell the spice scent of her fragrance. "You, my scrupulous little detective, haven't been listening for months. You've been running on 4 hours of sleep, on lukewarm coffee, on the exhausting momentum of being so close to catching my ghost." Scarlett didn't reply. Instead, she dropped her glass and lunged for her off-duty weapon in the top drawer of her mahogany desk. But Quinn was faster. Quinn covered the distance between them in 2 steps, cutting off Scarlett's access. Her terrifyingly strong hands closed around Scarlett's wrists and wrenched them behind her back, bringing Scarlett to a dead stop, pinning her against Quinn. A sharp pain lanced through Scarlett's shoulders, and she grit her teeth. "We're past the tools of the trade, detective," Quinn murmured, her mellow voice at odds with the strength of her hold. "I'm not here for a firefight. I'm here for the truth you keep hiding behind your badge." "So?" Quinn pressed her weight forward, forcing Scarlett's spine to bend. "Let's talk." "Release me, Quinn," Scarlett grated out, her voice tight in anger and something else she wouldn't admit. She tried to pivot out of the hold, but Quinn had her off balance. She was practically relying on Quinn's arms not to fall. General Vargas's file. It haunts you. Quinn's voice became serious, and any trace of teasing disappeared. You see the corruption, the weapons transfers, the catastrophe I averted. But you don't see the good you did. You only see your failure to arrest me. That's why you're so tired, Scarlett. You're fighting yourself, not me. Scarlett felt a flash of pure rage. General Luis Vargas had been a high-profile military official whose sudden heart attack 6 months ago had confounded 3 intelligence agencies. But Scarlett knew the truth. Quinn had prevented a global conflict by engineering a seemingly quiet, natural demise. She had the raw data, evidence, and classified reports, the same information her colleagues had. But the missing piece for them was that they didn't know Quinn herself. A report mysteriously spawned on Scarlett's kitchen island, confirming the greater good the hit served. This knowledge had poisoned her job and her peace. Don't talk about my job, Scarlett whispered, her breath catching. She tried again to dislodge Quinn, but the lean, muscular frame was a perfect counterweight against Scarlett's resistance. Scarlett still suspected Quinn had been someone who'd trained in the academy, though she could never find evidence of an agent gone rogue. This is a Class B felony, Scarlett hissed, straining. Unlawful entry, infrastructure sabotage, and a host of other charges if this is not the only thing you're doing. Which I know it isn't. Espionage, cybercrime, terrorism, treason. Treason? Quinn scoffed, her minty breath fanning across Scarlett's cheek. Treason is what General Vargas committed when he authorized the sale of chemical weapons to foreign enemies. Or what Senator Thorne enabled with his insider trading on defense contracts. I don't commit treason, Scarlett. Despite what you'd like to believe, to sleep at night. The taste of truth was bitter. You're an assassin, Scarlett shot back, and your job is killing you, darling. Quinn asserted. I see the dark circles. I see the sharp nerves and the tremor in your hand. You haven't truly rested since you realized that a criminal has a cleaner conscience than a detective. I am the inevitable result of your institution's failure. Quinn shifted both of them, using momentum to swing Scarlett toward the nearest wall. She brought her wrists in front, trapping Scarlett's hand between their bodies with one hand, and Scarlett's spine hit the cool, hard surface behind her. And this, Quinn murmured, placing her cheek against Scarlett's. This is what happens when you attempt to defy gravity, Detective. Scarlett finally stopped fighting the physical restraint, her muscles cramping up from sheer exhaustion. She was pinned between the hard wall and the warm body of Quinn. Her heart was pounding, not with fear or panic, but with a frantic, shameful longing for the struggle to end. For once, her fatigue was winning. The burden of the past 3 years' impossible cases was suddenly too heavy to bear on her own. The heat from Quinn's skin was leaching into her own, and the voice at her ear was like sandpaper and honey. You've been fighting against 2 things, Scarlett, Quinn whispered. My existence and your nature. Tonight, one of us is going to win. It is an act of necessity, not pleasure, though I admit it will be enjoyable. And I promise, losing yourself will feel exactly like winning. Quinn's free hand came up between them. Look at me, Scarlett, she commanded, tilting Scarlett's chin up with a finger. Scarlett's eyes met the shadowed darkness of Quinn's gaze. Tell me you're not tired, Quinn demanded. Scarlett opened her mouth, the lie on her tongue ready. Instead, an involuntary sigh escaped her lungs. I'm so tired, she confessed, the whisper barely audible. The words tasted like freedom. Quinn's expression, though hardly visible in the emergency light, seemed to soften. Good. Rest is a form of surrender, and you've been dying to surrender to me, darling. Without releasing Scarlett, Quinn pulled her from the wall, turning both of them again. Her free arm wrapped around Scarlett's back, supporting her weight as she walked her backward. It was an enforced intimacy, a compulsory moment of rest. Scarlett felt the overwhelming relief of having the crushing weight of her duty and obligations to her government momentarily lifted. The core of her being, the submissive part that yearned for absolute direction and release from responsibility, overtook her conscious mind. The backs of Scarlett's knees hit the mattress, and they tumbled gently. Quinn cushioned the fall with ease, laying Scarlett flat on her back. Her hands were now free, but it didn't matter. Quinn was draped half over her, the weight both oppressive and assuring. Quinn's guiding hand now moved up to settle on the back of her neck, at the base of her skull. It was a grip of guidance, a tacit demand for obedience. Look at the ceiling, Scarlett, Quinn commanded, her voice low. Scarlett did, seeing faint shadows on the smooth plaster above. Her eyes had since adjusted to the dim light, and she studied the orange glinting off the crystals on the light fixture. There is only this room, this silence, and my weight. Forget the rule of law. Forget the case that will never be closed because you know the world is better off with me free. Forget the part of you that hates me. Quinn squeezed her nape. Now close your eyes. Scarlett obeyed instantly, her eyes drifting shut. The command was soft, but the authority behind it was unreserved, forged over countless interactions where Quinn always dictated the terms. She'd been fighting, but only against the dizzying gratification of being completely chastened and contained. Quinn rested her forehead against Scarlett's. Breathe with me, she instructed. In and out slowly. Let the fear you carry drain out of you, just for now. You're safe here, Scarlett. I will always save you. A single hot tear escaped Scarlett's eyes, tracking down her temple and soaking into the covers beneath. She'd always been suspicious of her luck in perilous situations. When fellow agents failed to locate her, when backup units were slow to respond, when her own weapons were rendered useless, she'd lived anyway. Scarlett had ignored her intuition, a conscious effort to keep her hatred burning. However, a part of her always knew Quinn was responsible for the acts of mercy. Her hands, which had been braced against Quinn's chest, relaxed and curled into the expensive fabric of the jacket. She was no longer fighting. She was holding on. You're a hypocrite, Scarlett mumbled, a futile protest. You claim the moral high ground while using a body count to get there. Quinn tightened her fingers around Scarlett's neck, the pressure possessive and arresting. The difference between us, my dear detective, is that I am willing to get my hands dirty for a clean result. You want to keep your hands clean, but it often leads to a dirty result. Remember the Dahlgren Cyber Initiative? You chased me for months. The government was building a surveillance system to monitor every major city in the world. It was a warrantless breach of privacy for innocent civilians. So, I didn't just hack it. I incinerated it. And you know I was right to do so. Quinn had been right. Scarlett had seen the horrifying capability of the Dahlgren Code and the bleak future ahead. But duty had prevented her from acting. Quinn's power lay in her ability to act without compromise. Scarlett felt the vibrating tension she'd lived with for years begin to dissolve. The moral paralysis over whether her role hindered or aided, and the secret admiration of Quinn's freedom, began to bleed out of her. Quinn nuzzled her nose briefly, pulling her thoughts back to the present. You and I are on the same side of justice, Scarlett. I just execute differently. Don't hate me for that. I don't hate you. Quinn placed her cheek against Scarlett's again. She rubbed the firm and smooth skin against Scarlett's, softly applying more pressure than friction. The moment was intimate, a gesture of deep affection that felt like an erasure of her professional identity. Then Quinn dropped her head down to the crook of Scarlett's neck and inhaled deeply, nose pushing into her exposed pulse point. You feel like home, Scarlett, Quinn whispered. Let me be yours, just for now. Scarlett let out a shuddering breath. She wanted to say yes, but the word tangled around her tongue like metal wire. But Quinn knew. You try your hardest to be cold, but I see you. I see the burning desire within you to surrender. It doesn't make you less than. It doesn't invalidate you. It doesn't make you weak. Each sentence was a reassuring kiss to the forehead of Scarlett's ego. She pushed her face against Quinn's in return, allowing a soft sound to escape her throat. It was the closest to an affirmation as she could get. But Quinn didn't prod for more. She knew how difficult it was. She turned her face and pressed a chaste kiss to Scarlett's jaw. There you go, darling. It was the feeling of being dominated, without the need for a single act of violence. The power was in the enforced proximity and the silent assertion of their roles. More tears built beneath Scarlett's closed eyelids and leaked, burning scorching trails of shame and relief in equal measure. Another sound, embarrassingly close to a whimper, escaped Scarlett, a wordless bid for Quinn's comfort. I know, Quinn whispered. I'm here. Scarlett hadn't been able to see it, but she'd been hanging on by a thread for much longer than she wanted to admit. But Quinn had been watching. The crushing weight of moral ambiguity sat on her chest each day, and she'd needed someone to lift it. She should have known that the one to cause that conflict was the same one who could lift it. Her hands finally released the jacket and rose timidly to cup the dominant woman's head, pulling Quinn's face deeper into her neck. She exhaled a long, cleansing sigh that emptied her lungs. The last fragments of her control floated into the dark, and she became, simply, a woman. A woman pinned beneath the weight of her favorite criminal, finally at peace. Quinn recognized the finality of the surrender, and her breathing deepened, a low hum of triumph vibrating through Scarlett's skull. She shifted to press a kiss to the detective's temple, a modest acknowledgement of conquest. They lay there for a long time, suspended in a cocoon of symbiotic tenderness. The world Scarlett was tasked to protect was just beyond her four walls. Inconvenienced, yes, but also safe, thanks to the woman currently holding her captive. The irony of it all weighed more heavily than Quinn. Scarlett twirled a lock of Quinn's short hair around and through her fingers, The heat had already leached out of her condo, but she hardly felt it with Quinn's radiant warmth. "You'll leave when the lights come back on," she murmured, her voice thick with sleep and tired emotion. It was the statement of a law that governed their anomalous shared universe. Quinn's lips moved against her hair. "Perhaps." It's all Quinn would offer. "Tell me about the collapse of the Henkes trade agreement," Scarlett whispered into the darkness. It was her final request, the need to justify her surrender by hearing the details of another necessary crime. Quinn pulled out of Scarlett's grasp slightly, and Scarlett opened her eyes. Their gazes met. "Ah, that," Quinn mused. "The treaty would have given 3 energy corporations global water rights, crippling developing nations for decades. Despite your fears, your intelligence reports were correct, Detective. I collapsed the deal. I persuaded the primary negotiator to personally liquidate his entire offshore portfolio to cover the unexpected collateral damage. The deal died, and 40 million people in the global south retained access to their essential resources. Justice, disguised as a financial crash." Scarlett studied Quinn's face, the visage of a person who could sleep with a clear conscience at night. Her expression was open and free of any deceit. "Persuaded? Quinn's face settled into something smug, something that said, "See, I am worthy of your surrender." Scarlett gave a quiet laugh and tightened her arms around Quinn's head, bringing her close again. She had to accept the truth. The system she served was fundamentally broken, and the beautiful, dangerous woman who held her was the only true justice left in the world. Quinn shifted to lie on her side, moving Scarlett's head to rest on a bicep. She tucked a falling strand of hair behind Scarlett's ear, then tapped her cheek. "Rest now, Scarlett," Quinn commanded, her voice soft and authoritative. "Our chaotic world can wait until the lights come back on."